everyone to this Ward 2 Public Safety meeting. So if we could just get everyone's attention just briefly, we'll sit down and we'll start the event. If you can see my hand, everyone, this is what my teacher used to do to me when she wanted me to stop talking, so I'm going to do it. Everyone? All right, great. So welcome everyone. My name is Ron Cochran. I'm the Communications Director here in the City of Malden for Mayor Christenson. I'm just going to go over a couple of things, just some house rules or procedures for us to conduct this meeting tonight, and then we're going to kick it off to the panel here to get to the most important part of the content. We are also joined online by people on Facebook Live, so for those that couldn't make it tonight, if you want to share that with friends and relatives, neighbors that couldn't make it, you can send them a message to jump on to Facebook.com/City of Malden, where you can watch this broadcast live. You will also be able to re-watch this because all of our Facebook Live broadcasts are recorded and they're available to watch later. With the short notice of this particular event, we were unable to get translators for tonight's event. If you know of anyone that is in need of translation for this event, I will be happy. You can come to me after, and we'll be happy to translate either written translation or verbal for you. So please make that known to me after. I will be here all the way to the end and after the meeting. Okay, as far as the procedure for the questions, so we are joined online by folks on Facebook Live. I will be monitoring that feed for questions coming in from there. And then for folks that are in the room that want to ask questions, Sharon Villiard from UMA, Urban Media Arts Television, will be helping and assisting. I'll be sitting down filming. So what we'll do is we'll form a queue, and you can go right up to the line, and then we have the one microphone, so we'll pass for the question. That way the folks at home can hear through the microphone what the question was, and then we'll give the panel the chance to respond. So with that said, I'd like to introduce first our host, our Ward 2 City Councillor, Paul Condon.
Thank you, Ron. First, I'd like to thank the Irish American for giving us this hall, short notice, a day or two. So, also I'd like to thank every one of you for showing up here this evening to hear what we got to say, and hopefully when you leave here, all your questions will be answered. We're here, really, it's a Ward 2 public safety meeting. The situation happened right out there on Emerald Street, and we think that the head-on meeting like this, face-to-face, is much better than putting out a letter without you hearing what our answers might be. So we have the chief here, 30-year police officer, now our Malden. We have our mayor, Gary Christenson, 12-year mayor. The intent of this is that you can leave here tonight knowing exactly what happened, all your questions answered. Nobody's trying to hide anything here, so I think it's a good forum like this. Right now, I'd like to introduce our mayor, Gary Christenson.
Good evening, Malden. Again, I'm Gary Christenson, Mayor of the City of Malden. And let me just say at the outset, we are living in a safe community. Do we have our issues, our challenges, things that we need to work on together? Yes. But we are living in a safe community. Now, what allows me to stand before you tonight and say that? The difference between what has happened recently in our community is not what happened in 2012, 2013, which to me says a lot about where we are and where we are going. What occurred in 2012, 2013 was a complete takeover of Malden. We had a group that originated here, committed their crimes here, did them randomly and targeted. Back then, as a first-term mayor, I felt, like I think a lot of you did, unsafe. 10 years later, that is not the case. The incidents that have occurred are not interconnected. The parties in no way know each other who committed these crimes, and it wasn't any one crime. Back in 2012, 2013, it was drugs, and more drugs. One was drugs, another one we think was domestic, and another one was road rage. Now, 2 of the 3, I believe, emanated from outside the city, so they did not originate here in the community. They spilled over. Not that it makes it any better. But what I'm trying to assure you, this is not 2012, 2013. And you are proof of that. Being here on a Thursday night on short notice, 95 degrees, that's why I feel more confident than ever, despite what has happened, that we are still in a great community. The other reason I believe I can say that is because of the hard work that is occurring in our community. Just to my left, we have Joe Levine, who heads up our recreation department. And let me just say, the number of programs that are being offered to our youth is the most I've ever seen in my 20-year career in public service. We have Kashana Harling back at City Hall, who has a record number of youth working in our summer jobs program. We meet every Tuesday morning, year-round. No matter if the times are good or bad, we are together talking about ways to keep our community safe. And I don't want to steal the chief's thunder, but there are things that they are doing that I'm not even sure I'm allowed I could tell you, but they are having an effect. I've seen it, and I couldn't be prouder of Chief Cronin and his staff that are here tonight. So what I would ask all of you to do is to pay close attention to our police chief on the explanation of what has happened. And let me also assure all of you that any incident that occurs in our community, our police chief issues a press release once we have all the facts, and we also notify the ward councilor. Now from there, we determine with the ward councilor on whether or not a meeting such as this is warranted. Credit to Councillor Condon, he thought it was. But again, that is extended no matter whether we have one incident a year or we have several incidents a year. That is the protocol out of the mayor's office. So again, thank you all for being here. I will be here during, after, and I think if you know me, 365 days a year to make Malden all that it can and should be. Now I would like to introduce Police Chief Glenn Cronin.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone, and as the Mayor said, my name is Glenn Cronin, Chief of Police. I have with me here tonight Captain Paul Hopkins, he's the Patrol Commander, and K-9 Officer, Officer Polston. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. You know, I, like you, am very concerned about what happened on July 4th. You know, it's a frightening thought when you think about it, that someone can get a hold of a gun, drive up a street, and pull that trigger and fire off a bunch of rounds indiscriminately, endangering the lives of all those in the area. I was relieved, and I'm grateful that through some stroke of luck, nobody was injured, but I'm also aware that an event like this can have an emotional impact. It can be quite significant, and we would never overlook that. First and foremost, I want to thank those residents that called us on July 4th to let us know there was a disturbance on Emerald Street. You're our eyes and ears out here. We need that information, so we're very grateful that you called. And like I said, no one was injured, but I also know that situations like this can create a sense of unease and insecurity, but with that, let me tell you that the Malden Police Department is committed to ensuring your safety and well-being. We have a thorough and ongoing investigation. Right now, as we speak, our Criminal Investigation Division is collecting more evidence. They are, of course, the goal is to identify the perpetrator of this crime, but they're getting more evidence right now, testimonial type evidence. And I can tell you, on that morning, we were able to get a good-sized group back to the police station that were involved in this. They were interviewed, they were questioned, they've made statements. We've got their parents in there, they were interviewed, they made statements, and in the coming days, there's going to be a second round of questioning with more statements coming up. So, and a little background on the individuals that were involved. They're all 18 years old, all Malden residents. All of them have gone through the Malden public school system. All of them have played in almost every athletic program the city offers. They've all played for Mr. Levine at one point. None of them have any criminal history, and most of the police officers know them, and they consider them very good kids. So, not that to take away the impact of this, but I just want to give you a little background on the kids that were involved with this on July 4th. And lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that from day one when this first happened, the mayor and Councillor Condon have been in constant touch with me every day, either in person or on the phone regarding this incident. So there's nobody that has more concern about your safety and security than the mayor and the councillor. So thank you very much. You know, I can just give you a little background on what happened that night. These kids, you know, readily admitted that they park on Emerald Street. They hang out in the area right out here beside the tennis court, park in their cars. They like to go into the park, in the middle of the park where it's darkest, and they actually have Orbeez guns in their cars. They put eye protection on like paintball. They go out in the field at night and they shoot each other with water pellets. This is what they do, and we did recover those in 2 vehicles. While they were going back to their cars, at some point they heard a car coming up from the Fellsway, engine revving very loud, come flying up, and whoever was in that car, you know, I don't know how many people were in that car, we don't know who had the gun at this point, but believe me, we're working on it, and we're very confident that we're going to find out. Fired off some rounds. So that's how it played out that night.
Not random.
No, absolutely not random. You know, without getting too deep into it, there was an incident earlier in the night in Revere at Wonderland. There was a very large fight. Over 100 kids were involved. There is a possibility that this was stemmed from there. They may have been followed back here. So we're still working on all possibilities. But believe me, in the end, we're going to find out who did that.
Do you want to cover this?
Yeah, and actually, thank you, ma'am. If you want to look at the little flyer we have out here, this little informational bulletin, you can see, you know, when you're looking at Ward 2, it's one of the safest wards in our city. From 22 to 23 year to date, you know, murder, rape, these are all violent crimes. No change at all, meaning that we had none. Robberies, 100% decrease from 2022, none. Aggravated assaults, no change from 2022. B&Es into a dwelling or burglaries, a 100% decrease from 2022. A theft from a building, which is typically package thefts, porch pirates we call them, a 50% increase, which was basically, you know, 1 to 2. So the numbers are still extremely low for a ward that has thousands of people in it. Theft from a motor vehicle, no change in that at all. Motor vehicle thefts, 67% decrease from 2022. So those are the crimes that we're concerned with. Those are not quality of life. Those are considered violent crimes. The other issues at the bottom, quality of life issues, disorderly conduct, none. OUIs, we have 1. Overdoses, 2. And this is in 6 months. You know, recovered stolen motor vehicles. We've had 6 of those. Typically, that would be the same person, and it appears as though a few of those vehicles were stolen out of Melrose and just dropped here in Malden. So, with that, I just want to let you know that Ward 2 is an extremely safe ward, just like the entire city. Malden is a very safe place to live. Just wanted to reinforce that.
questions? Ron, you want? I just wanted to.
So not for the folks here, but at home, we're having a little bit of choppiness because there's a tough Wi-Fi signal in here, so I'm working on that. So I'm saying that in front of the camera for the folks at home. We're trying to do that. But again, as a reminder for those that are inside, if you wanted to come up and queue up here, Sharon will take care of passing the microphone to you for questions.
So if you have some questions, please come up, ask them. I'm sure you have thoughts about what might have happened, what could happen, and any way you think it should be addressed. We have to depend on you people to let us know what's going on out there. But I know the chief has some plans on how we're going to handle the park. Every night at...
Yep, you want it? I'll just tell you. So what we're going to do going right through the summer, and this has already started, we're going to increase the police presence in this area. I'm going to do that through directed patrols on Emerald Street, Malden Street, Devil Park, Davidson Way, West Street, Highland Ave, and all the other peripheral streets. At 10 o'clock every night, we're going to have an officer here clearing the park out to make sure there are nobody is in the park. And if there is, they're going to be requested to leave the park because it is closed at that time. So that's going to be continuing on right through the summer.
Thank you, Chief. Somebody must have a question. Oh my God, Christine Murphy.
I was wondering if you think there's a correlation between the incident on Highland Ave and what happens at the park?
Yes. And we absolutely. The question is, was there a correlation between the incident on Highland Ave, which is an errant bullet that was found that it went through a window, and the incident that we had here on Emerald Street? And absolutely, we believe that was one of the errant rounds that were fired from that gun.
Next.
Councillor, why wasn't there a reverse 911 call with shots fired to the Washington residents? People have their doors open in the summertime, no matter what time it is. You have a screen door, the bar, the doors are unlocked, open, screens. We get a reverse call for street sweeping, for parking, guns shot. In our life, nothing. I found out from neighbors talking, I found out there's kids from Rivera, there's a gang from Rivera, from all neighbors. That should have never happened when I always thought the city. I mean,
So I'd like to answer that. The question was, why wasn't there a code red, a reverse 911 call made after this? We don't typically like to use a code red every time there's an incident like this, unless there's an ongoing situation where somebody's in the area and you're in danger. That car was gone out of here, and we were here within seconds. So there was at no time after the shots were fired that we would do a code red. This is at 2 o'clock in the morning. 98% of the people wouldn't get that code red till the morning. They're sleeping at that time. But we don't want to get into a situation where we use code red to the point where nobody listens to it anymore. It's got to be for something. Not that this wasn't serious, but it also has to be, in context. There was no reason to issue it. There was nobody, we didn't have to worry about doors open or doors unlocked or anything like that. So believe me, if there's a situation where we need to do a code red, we're well aware of it, and we'll make sure that we do one.
thank you. So I was originally told it was afternoon, and then I was concerned that, yes, the schools are closed, but if it had been afternoon, would that have been a reverse call? Especially in schools, so many schools in Ward 2, Ward 3, Ward 3.
Could you repeat that?
I was originally told it happened in the afternoon. So I was concerned, yes, the schools are closed now, but have the schools been open in so many schools in Ward 2 and Ward 3? Would there have been a reverse call in the case of shots fired?
Absolutely. That will be our number one consideration, and that's one of those situations where we would have done that.
And you would have locked the schools down.
And the schools would have been in lockdown right away.
Do you want to go to yours, Ron? Do you want to take one from yours or keep going? Do you want us to keep taking yours? Yeah.
Who else has a question? if you could,
Is this the first time this incident's been publicized? Because I'm trying to find out information, you know, on my phone. There was nothing in the news. You know, there was no information to be found. And after I had heard about the gunshot, or the bullet going through the window on Highland Ave, because it happened to be a friend of a person that lives downstairs from me, who's elderly, they were extremely frightened. And fortunately, we were able to get some truthful information, but it's been 9 days. You know, and as much as I wholly appreciate this meeting, I was thrilled to hear that it was happening. But just not knowing, I mean, once we got the information, we felt a little better about it. But I was surprised that there was nothing, you know, publicized, because it seems sort of pertinent, especially the information wasn't, you know, just information was out there, not really knowing what happened.
Right, no, a great question. The question was, why wasn't this publicized right away? So that morning, when we responded here, this was about 1:30 in the morning. Officers got here, and there was absolutely nobody in the street. There's nobody around. We got a call for shots fired, or possibly fireworks at that time. It was pouring out. So at that point, we really didn't know what we had. You know, it was a little into the next day, and the day after that, we got more and more information. So it was a sort of a gradual process that we were kind of rolling through, because typically, you know, every city in town gets calls for shots fired. And it could be fireworks, it could be shots, but this is something that occurs in every city in town and in every state in this country a lot. So you don't typically, you know, at that point put something out, shots fired. So, you know, soon in October, we're getting new service at the police station where our daily crime log is going to be posted every single day. It'll pop up, and that's the same screen that the officers are looking at. It's a CAD entry screen. So that will be coming up soon, and that will get the information to you folks faster. But we did already try this earlier. The system that we had was incompatible. It was putting out too much information that, you know, people's personal information, so that was taken down immediately. So in the future, that's going to be happening. It'll be live.
This is really helpful too, and I think, you know, I would like to hear the positive stuff more often, you know, publicly as well. You know, hearing from you, you know, that this is a safe, Malden city, and also this ward as well.
Chief.
I appreciate that.
Just to add to that, we always do a year-end review in Malden's State of the City address, which can be found on YouTube in different formats. So if you Google the 2023 State of the City address, the police department section goes into these stats. But what the chief and I are considering doing is, we used to, back again when we were under siege in 2012, 2013, having monthly coffee hours or meetings around the city. We may look to reinstitute that. We stopped doing it because we had a really good cycle there for about, you know, 10 years. But now with the recent spate, we may look to do those. If not in person, maybe webinars or something to that effect, to your point, to maybe help get that data out on a more timely basis. Because I agree with you, I see this every Tuesday morning. We review the stats year-round, and I'm seeing the work. You know, aside from these events, overall, it's not 2012, 2013. Again, that was a harrowing experience. We were averaging gunshots 2 a day, sometimes 3 a day. I mean, it was bad back then. But thanks to then Police Chief Kevin Molas, who was working alongside Police Chief Glenn Cronin, we were able to, you know, nip that. So.
thank you. Any more questions?
On July 9th, I read that there was a shooting in Main Street. Is this related, or is it separate?
No, it's separate.
The question was the July 4th incident related to the July 9th incident on Main Street? Absolutely not. No correlation whatsoever between the two. No connection. And let me just say this while we're talking about that. Between these two things, there's no organized activity here. We have a very good handle on the situation on Main Street. That individual was placed under arrest 8.5 hours later after a lot of investigative work between the patrol force, the detectives, and other law enforcement agencies. The reason that happened is because the court system dropped the ball. That individual that shot that individual in the parking lot, of course I'm not going to use any names, should have been waiting to go to trial, but he should have been waiting while he was, in a correctional facility. In April of 21, he shot a 68-year-old grandmother while she was on her way to get her taxes done. He's arraigned, he's arrested, he's arraigned. They had a dangerousness hearing. They held him for a little while. Then they released him on a bracelet and didn't consider him a danger to the public. Well, he was, because he came right back to Malden on a Sunday afternoon and shot somebody. But it should have never happened because he should never have been out. And now I'm glad to say, I'm relieved to say, that we just held a dangerousness hearing on him after we arrested him, and he's being held now to face all of these. He's got multiple charges: assault with intent to murder, felony in possession of a firearm. These are things that he should have been in custody that should never have happened.
You see, Chief.
Was that a random, was it random?
No, it was not random.
It was targeted.
Targeted. And let me just reiterate what the chief said. He's talking to you about Main Street, but that's a regular occurrence during our Tuesday morning meetings. They are finding them, they are arresting them. But once they're turned over to the court system, all bets are off. And that is the most frustrating thing you can imagine for Chief Cronin and the men and women of the Malden Police Department. It's demoralizing. But credit to them, they don't let that affect their performance and their love for Malden. They keep doing it over and over again, and every Tuesday I ask Glenn, how do you do it? Because you're putting them in jail and they're somehow finding their way back out. We have arrested people with 50, 60. I think one time we picked up someone that had 70 prior occurrences. Now I agree, there are flaws in the criminal justice system, no doubt. But not when it comes to gun violence. There should not be any flaws when it comes to gun violence. And that's what we're dealing with here. The incident on the east side, which we haven't really discussed, that was in Overlook, should have never been on the street. A record as long as you can see. But there he was. And that is just, if there's anything you can do in here, anytime you see a state legislator or someone from the federal government, senators, congresswoman, somehow, some way, that has got to be addressed. I mean, we have a law in the books that if you're caught with an illegal gun, it's supposed to be an automatic year, but the chief will tell you that is not being enforced. And as a result, this is what's happening.
Yeah, and the mayor is referencing the Bartley Forge proviso. When someone is, caught in possession of a firearm, they are supposed to do a minimum mandatory of 2 years in jail. That's not happening. So that's a major concern for us. And like the mayor said, the issue up at Overlook Ridge, another situation. I can tell you, I know everybody that was involved up there, and none of them had any Malden connections, not one. Which is also concerning for me as the chief and responsible for public safety. These folks were all from the Boston area, in Mattapan and Dorchester and Roxbury, but they wound up here, up at Overlook Ridge.
With records.
With records. Records from here to Bismarck, North Dakota, so it's very concerning that they're out, with law-abiding citizens.
Other questions, please?
Online was asking to clarify what the July 4th incident was.
The July 4th incident involved somebody shooting at somebody, right here on Emerald Street, a group of kids that were on the street that were fired at. And thank God, nobody was injured, nobody was hit.
I was just curious, did the Malden teams fire back?
Not at all. As far as our investigation is at this point, none of them had any weapons, and none of them had the propensity to have weapons. We know these kids. They're not gun carrying kids.
At the time, it sounded like a car backfire, or, like a whole neighborhood woke up, and, the next day it was, did you hear that, did you hear that, and I didn't hear a large police response, and I understand that you drove by and there's nothing to respond to. Occasionally, there's kids will hang out in the Irish American parking lot, the cars are blasting, I don't care if they're sitting there, whatever they're doing. I've called the police probably 3 times this past year. Every single time I've called, it's been through today within 10 minutes. You guys, I hate to bother you with something silly, but it's 1 o'clock in the morning and, the stereo's blasting and they, the police response that I've got for those few annoying nights has been, spot on.
Thank you for saying that. As the chief, I'm so glad to hear that. But please, you call us. Don't hesitate. Small things can become big things. And those are all quality of life issues. So that's important to us. I know it's important to the councilor and the mayor. So please do call. We appreciate that.
One other thing that we have found to be a huge asset for our city, he mentions it every week at our weekly meetings, is the number of you that have taken it upon yourselves to install video surveillance systems. Those have made a titanic difference in Malden. Ring and some of the other ones, if any of you don't have that and would consider getting it, it would be a help to us, right, Chief?
Absolutely. We solve so many crimes now through the use of Ring doorbells. I'm not endorsing Ring by any stretch, but any type of those doorbells. But you would not, we have forms that we leave at houses now whenever something happens in the street. We leave forms at the houses asking folks if they would let us view their camera, if there was somebody taking packages off a porch. We use them every single day of the year now. And all of our residents here in the city, everybody has been great about it, giving us their footage, and we have solved so much crime because of that. So,
Thank you, Chief. Any more questions?
Yeah, Chief, could you clarify on the Emerald Street incident, you were saying something about they were playing with like toy guns out there. On that particular night, were they? And someone randomly drove by and shot at them? Is that what you're saying?
yes, so there's we're still working on that. That's why there's going to be a second round of questioning. So it's a little hazy right now. Were they out in the field earlier that night doing that, or were they in Revere? And they all come flying back here and possibly being chased from Revere. So there's that potential, but that's something that we're working on. Those are two theories. But believe me, we've got other technical investigative measures in place right now that will help us solve this.
4 or 5 cars that were parked out there, the detective and everybody came. They weren't parked here a long time. They came, I happened to be looking out the window, it was raining, I was shutting my windows, but they came immediately after we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, boom, and within 5 minutes, bang, 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 bang. So they weren't out here.
Right. No, that's why I say that Revere incident, there's a strong connection there in our opinion at this point. But in this field, we've got to prove that. So, no, they mentioned that they do that routinely in the park, shooting all these guns, but, which we did recover in their cars, but we do have Ring doorbell showing, and we could hear what they were saying as well. So. Yeah, no, and not for a second do we believe that either, so.
I was wondering if the car that came by the next day, if that person was investigated, plate number was given to the police?
I would have to speak with Captain Gackham on that, but believe me, every lead is followed up on as far as we can go with it. And we believe that night there were more than 4 cars there. There were probably 7. So, and we know that they had just got there. So, but I don't want to give away the store here. It's still under investigation. So,
One thing, though, I do have to admire about Chief Cronin and the members of his team. They're not just arresting them and moving on to the next case. I don't want to say too much, but he's had the families in, trying to let them know the big picture here, that, you know, these kids, they're just starting their lives, and they got lucky here, and trying to reiterate the importance of life's opportunities. The same thing goes for the Malden High School head football coach, Richie Exelholm. When that incident occurred on Main Street, he texted all of his players right away to find out if they were okay, was there anything he could do. That's what makes me proud and keeps me so energized, seeing people like Richie and Joe and others having that type of compassion, because it can be frustrating, again, when, not so much on Emerald Street, but these other cases, you're picking up people that have no business being picked up in the first place. So I just wanted to assure you that what has really impressed me is this team approach, that, you know, there are people that care here, which I think sometimes tends to be forgotten when you're dealing with crime. You know, sometimes it's, all right, arrest next. That, I'm not seeing that here in Malden.
Do you want it back? I'd just like to touch on one thing here. The chief, as the chief said, at 10 o'clock there'll be a car out there clearing this park. If there's cars out there, we need you. We need you to call the station and say, look, they moved them 15 minutes ago. They're back. The chief wants to hear you. We have to hear from the neighbors. You're our eyes and ears. So please don't hesitate to call. Cologne Hayes, please.
I'm going to try to...
Just turn it on 1 second, Karen. I just got to turn that down or else it'll blast. Okay, you turn it on.
Okay.
Turn it on.
Hello, okay. Wow, that is loud. All right. So first of all, thank you so much, Chief, for being here and answering questions, and thank you, Councillor Condon, for this, and the Mayor. This is actually a great follow-up for what the Mayor was just saying. My question, I'm here, I am a councillor at large, but I'm here as a parent of 3. We have, my kids are always down at Malden Pizza, the New York Pizza. So my question about... Thank you. Okay. So the question about what kids do, and I love that Richie put a text out to his kids that work with him. I was having the same thing. So as far as kids, when they hear something like that in the daytime, so you're talking about the ones that are at 2 o'clock in the morning, and that's fine, most of us sleep through it, but as far as the kids, I called you and I want to thank you. You answered immediately, and that's because my kids were down there, and also there were other kids who heard it and were scared. So what would you, like, what advice do you have for kids to, what should they do in a situation like that? They were afraid, they ran into wherever they could hide until they knew it was safe. Some called me, then I called you. Like, what's something they can do? Should they call the police station?
Thank you, Councilor, for that. I think you want to repeat the question. Okay, well, good. So, Councilor, yeah, it's, you know, obviously you have kids, I have kids, I have grandkids, you know, and the advice that I would give them is what you just said. If you see something like that, of course, you're going to get away from the area, and you're going to call the police as quickly as you can if you have the opportunity, or tell someone else to call the police. But that would be my advice. You know, just a common sense approach to that, and get us there as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to respond to what you had said about as far as all the cars coming. Again, I live right next door. I can see the entire parking lot from my house. And a few weeks ago, or a month or so ago, I did call. It was the same thing. It was just a perfect Saturday or Sunday later in the day, and then 10 cars showed up. And, a bunch of kids get out, and they're all, rambling around and this and that. And so I said to my husband, something's going to happen. I should call the police. And he said, well, they were doing, Fight Club? And that's exactly what happened. And I did call the police, and I said, I don't want to get anyone in trouble. I don't want, people showing up. I don't want any, I didn't want anyone to overreact on the police department side of things because there were so many kids. But it was probably, it was one of those things where they must have all said, hey, let's go meet in the Malden parking lot. I didn't recognize anybody. I don't really know any of the, the high school age kids, but they were all 15, 16, 19 years old. And they came and they got out of the cars. The kids punched each other and they were gone. The police were there in 5 minutes after I called. So, not to be like the nosy neighbor that sounds like I call the police all the time, but, and again, the police response was quickly, but I don't think, they weren't neighborhood kids. They weren't anybody that I've ever seen walking around.
Yeah, I have a perfectly good explanation for that. Social media. These kids now have themselves live on Facebook. Every time they're in a group, they're calling everybody in from elsewhere. Most of them aren't from Malden. That's the problem with social media. I can tell you when the kids are out here with the Orbeez guns in the park, they're videotaping themselves, and they're putting that out to other people. So that's a paradigm change for us. Because we've got to deal with that. You could have 300 people show up in 15 minutes, and we've had that in certain situations. We've been able to handle it every time, but that is an issue.
Any more questions?
So I'm still unclear on
Okay. I'm still unclear on the people that were involved in this. You said some of them are on Malden sports teams and stuff. Are they the ones that were actually doing the shooting? Okay, because I mean...
No, to answer that question is absolutely not. No.
So...
The vehicle that come up Emerald Street was the vehicle that was firing.
Were there more than one car was a gun being shot from more than one car?
No, not as far as our investigation has revealed at this point. Do you have information that there's another car?
I'd like to talk to you after.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Please.
Hello everyone, my name is Ryan O'Malley, I'm the Ward 4 City Councilor. I just want to personally thank Paul Condon, the Ward 2 Councilor, the Chief and the Mayor for having this. Obviously the incident that is being talked about tonight happened in Ward 2, but as we heard, there have been other incidents. For instance, there was an incident the other day on Main Street in Ward 4. We've heard about things happening at Overlook Ridge. The Mayor has committed that we will do more citywide meetings, so I do really appreciate this is happening. Community policing and working with the Chief is how we keep our community safe. That transparency and showing us what's happening is really how we're going to make this community as safe as it possibly can. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Any more questions?
I have a question in regards to why, if we're under construction in this park, why there's access off of Emerald Street and Malden Street if we've had incidences in there. Why doesn't it get back off again? That would solve some of the problem. They couldn't get in there to do the things that they're doing.
Could you repeat that question, please?
So you can access the middle of the old big baseball field and the softball field from Emerald Street, at least the last time I walked around there a few days ago. And you can get in on the Malden Street side behind the Little League field. So why is that open if the park's under construction? You know, probably like 3-4 weeks back, I saw like this giant party out in the middle of that baseball field with cars all parked up the Fellsway, just a bunch of kids, you know. Not that there was anything mischievous I could see, but they were just in the middle of the park, just having a good old time playing volleyball and whatnot, and it was dusk, so why is there access to the park if it's a closed park?
The kids probably ripped something open to gain access. I don't know. We can find that out, for sure.
That are being worked on and have been roped off.
I think the intent was to allow access to Bruce Field through the center field gates.
Right, that's where they were playing the volleyball.
We had known that from the beginning when we started this project, that we weren't going to shut the Little League field down, but they could only access from center field, and that any parents had to watch it from center field, any of the games. But
And personally, I have used the tennis courts. I mean, I appreciate that parts of the park are open during construction. I'm sure that, the safety guidelines that are being followed. But yes, you can't get in the park.
if you're not sure, call, and we'll get you the answer whether or not they should be there. Thank you. Who's next?
I actually have two questions. I was wondering first, does the department have any interaction with police departments in the area? And also, what is done for the police officers who answer a violent call like that so that they can process their trauma before they go to another job?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. The answer is yes to both. We have constant communication with every city and town around us. And further than that, we have a great working relationship with almost all law enforcement agencies in this area. Whenever the officers go to a critical incident, they are connected with a group called CISM, Crisis Incident Management Team. They're members from Boston Police Department, Cambridge Police Department, Malden Police Department. Officers from many cities and towns around us are part of this team, and they're all specially trained in crisis management. So we make sure that our officers do have that, because as you would imagine, these police officers do see many things that most people don't. So, thank you.
Any more questions?
You want to announce, so.
Just back to the, for those who want to do a rewatch, because the Facebook has had, obviously, I'm running around like a roadie at a band, at a concert, but anyway, we've been unable to completely record it via Facebook, but thanks to UMA, they're recording it right now, so it'll be rebroadcast on public access. So for those that want to rewatch it, that's where you can watch it, and it should be available within a couple of days.
We'll be around after this meeting if you have any more questions. People sometimes don't like to get up in front of a crowd to ask the questions, but we will be around, and nobody knows more than Joe Levine. So don't be afraid to grab him in a corner. He'll get the answer. Thank you very much for coming. Like I said, I hope you feel a little better about our neighborhood, because it really is a great neighborhood.
Urban Media Arts.